They arrive like warmth before dawn, not as a spectacle but as a remembering of what the heart already knows. You do not meet them first with the eyes. You meet them with the softening that occurs when suspicion loosens its grip and breath begins to move again. The Pleiadians announce themselves not by authority but by intimacy, by an invitation to feel the world from the inside. In Barbara Marciniak's transmissions, they call us to reclaim personal sovereignty and to choose reality through frequency, not fear. That teaching is not a demand, it is a doorway. In Lyssa Royal Holt's work, the Pleiadian stream appears as a branch of a larger human saga, one that carries the imprint of early star lineages yet insists on present-moment consciousness over ancient pride. Across many voices, a single thread remains. They are emissaries of the living heart, framers of joy as intelligence, mentors in the craft of embodied light. They do not propose spiritual bypass. The smile in their field is not empty optimism. It is a disciplined refusal to worship pain as the sole teacher. If Arcturian presence clarifies structure, Pleiadian presence reanimates warmth inside that structure so it can hold life. They ask you to notice the shape of your inner weather, to tune the instruments of attention until sensation, emotion, thought, and breath play together rather than against each other. When they speak of frequency, they mean the practiced art of selecting the station your reality broadcasts on, not through denial, but through responsible felt alignment. Joy is not a mood for them, it is a technology, a coherent state that magnetizes timelines where love can actually function. They speak plainly about fear. Fear is not evil in their dictionary, it is a contraction that forgets its own origin. The Pleiadian method is not to wrestle fear until it submits, but to hold it in honest warmth until it reveals its message and dissolves. This is why so many people report a particular tenderness in their transmissions. The tenderness itself is an instruction. Your nervous system can become a sanctuary rather than a battlefield. They teach practices that seem almost childlike in their simplicity. Breath in the belly, attention in the heart, truth spoken gently but directly. Yet those practices move tectonic plates because they restore relationship where strategy has been starving. Their cosmology is wide but never cold. Yes, there are accounts of star migrations, genetic mentoring, and epochs of schooling across systems. But when they share those stories, it is to rescue you from the small room in which you thought you lived, not to enroll you in a museum. They reach for memory only if it helps you love better now. They do not fetishize origins. A star map without intimacy is as useless to them as a library no one reads. When a life on Earth begins to ache for home, they do not encourage escape. They ask what your current street, your current breath, your current relationships would look like if home were already here. Their homecoming is a portable state. Their guidance lands most strongly in the area the modern world mistrusts, the emotional body. They do not treat emotions as noise beneath enlightenment. They treat them as musical intervals that, when tuned, turn a person into a transmitter of sanity. Grief is an opening, not a flaw. Desire is a compass when cleaned of compulsion. Anger is a boundary announcing itself, asking for skill rather than shame. The Pleiadian field speaks to each of these currents as if it were an old friend returning from exile. In their presence, people often cry without reasons they can name. It is not sentimentality, it is thaw. They love the paradox of play with depth. Many transmissions weave laughter through fierce truth-telling, not to dilute the medicine but to help it travel. They insist the universe is not merely serious, it is creative. Creativity is not a hobby to them, it is an ontological fact. Reality itself is creative pressure, and human beings are authorized to shape it. When they say you create your reality, they do not mean you control every event. They mean you are always participating in the meaning field, always radiating a tone that collides with the world and changes it. Responsibility, then, is not blame but authorship. The Pleiadian path is authorship with a warm hand. They keep returning to the body. Light is not a concept. It is an experience lived in tissue, breath, posture, and choice. They direct attention to the center of the chest and the line of the spine not because of ritual, but because those are reliable gates. Open the chest, they say, and the secret staircase appears, the one that runs down through the belly into the earth and up through the crown into the stars. Many report tingling, heat, pressure, or subtle currents during Pleiadian work. They rarely dramatize this. Sensation is simply confirmation that attention and energy met. What matters is the integration afterwards. Are you kinder, clearer, braver in small daily acts? Their measure of progress is behavioral poetry, not performance. They teach relationship as a spiritual dojo. Intimacy is the fastest mirror. One Pleiadian lesson repeats: speak the unsaid in love before it rots into resentment. Listen for the truth inside a loved one's clumsy words. Learn the choreography of repair. They do not confuse boundaries with walls. A boundary held in love invites deeper contact, not distance. In this way, households become temples, friendships become laboratories of trust, and communities become fields where evolution can move in public. Their civilization is remembered not for perfect cities, but for the skill of keeping the field clean when many hearts meet. They honor Earth as a teacher equal to the stars. That sentence is not flattery to Gaia. It is calibration for humanity, which often looks up to avoid looking in. They will reference the Pleiades when it helps you remember your largeness, and then point your feet to soil, water, wind, and the fire in your kitchen. They want your spirituality to withstand Mondays. They adore ritual only if it increases contact with life. They applaud meditation that yields tenderness towards your neighbor. They do not traffic in specialness. If you carry a Pleiadian imprint, they will not turn it into a badge. They will ask you to live as a good human who remembers more. If you carry no such imprint, you are not excluded. Resonance is welcome wherever it is chosen. They have a distinct way of talking about time. Linear time for them is a practical game board, not a prison. They encourage working with probable timelines by how you feel and act now. Not think positively in the brittle sense, but adjust state and behavior so that doors can notice you. They speak about choice points that flare in the present. Moments when a small brave act, a vulnerable sentence, a courageous boundary changes the corridor ahead. In that view, prophecy is never final. It is a weather report edited by love. Their healing work often arrives as stories. A council elder tells of a lifetime where joy had to be protected like a seed through winters of cynicism. A friend from the stars remembers failing at control until she learned to host her fear instead. A teacher describes the moment he realized forgiveness is not permission, but freedom. These stories smuggle codes. Listening, something in the body rehearses new options. The Pleiadian discipline is to make the new options easy to choose, not by pressure, but by making love feel like home again. They keep intimacy with source simple. Source is not far. Prayer is not a performance, it is a direct line. Gratitude is not a moral posture, it is an energetic alignment that opens ports. They prefer your honest anger to your fake serenity. They trust that truth spoken in devotion causes less damage than harmony maintained by silence. They take delight in human art, music, dance, and kitchen table epiphanies, because those are the places where the distance between cosmic and ordinary disappears. They refuse to speak about ascension as escape. Their ascension is inclusion, more of you held in love, not less of earth in your heart. They are candid about manipulation dressed as light. They advise discernment without paranoia. Ask how you feel after contact, they say. Are you clearer, more empowered, more compassionate, more willing to take responsibility? Or are you dependent, frantic, superior, or numb? Any teaching that makes you smaller is not theirs. Any voice that demands worship is not their counsel. They honor guides and teachers, but they never replace your center with theirs. The signature of their field is sovereignty braided with connection. They believe in laughter that breaks spells. When human beings take themselves so seriously that growth becomes impossible, the Pleiadian ray will often tickle the rigid places until breath returns. In the same hour, they may help you weep and remind you that the universe has a sense of humor about your plans. This is not cruelty. It is mercy toward the part of you that mistakes tension for virtue. They are not naive about suffering. They simply refuse to enthrone it. They speak to creators with a particular intimacy. If you make songs, images, words, gardens, or businesses, they talk to you as colleagues. They love prototypes, experiments, messy first drafts. They bless iterations. They repeat like a mantra. Ship love now, improve it next week. They are patient with skill building but impatient with self-censorship. The world, they insist, does not need your perfection. It needs your resonance. If you must choose between polished cynicism and imperfect kindness, choose kindness and refine as you go. Children feel safe around their field. Animals relax, rooms lighten. None of this is magic in the theatrical sense, it is tone. When a person entrains to Pleiadian warmth, their presence teaches without a word. Strangers tell them secrets on park benches. Family patterns disarm around them. Conflict still happens, but solutions appear faster because someone in the room is willing to move first toward truth. That is the quiet revolution they sponsor. They do not erase shadow, they metabolize it. Shame cannot survive exposure to compassionate truth. The Pleiadian recipe is to name what is present, feel it without collapse, breathe until the body opens, and choose an action aligned with love even if it is small. Repetition turns this into character. Communities built on such character stop outsourcing salvation to leaders. They become ecosystems of mutual regulation and shared genius. They keep pointing to a future that is not waiting at the horizon, but seated in micro-choices. The future in which humanity remembers itself as a creative species is activated by cups of tea, offered in hard conversations, by apologies made without defense, by art that tells the truth with beauty, by businesses designed to serve life rather than drain it. They are uninterested in dates and obsessed with readiness. Readiness to them is when enough hearts have practiced coherence that new architectures can land. They end where they begin, with the heart made practical. Place a hand to your chest. Breathe in a way that your belly moves. Speak one honest sentence you have been avoiding. Feel the relief, and then take the next small step that relief makes possible. This is not glamorous, it is profoundly Pleiadian. In that sequence, the star stories stop being elsewhere and become the electricity in your blood. The Pleiadians do not want fans. They want partners. Humans who remember joy not as escape but as a stance sturdy enough to build worlds. Their tone is unmistakable once it enters the spiral. If the Arcturians offer the crystalline lattice that holds order, the Pleiadians flood that lattice with warmth so that it is not sterile, but alive. Their tone is the pulse of joy that makes structure meaningful, the current of compassion that turns geometry into sanctuary. Where other tones may cut or clarify, the Pleiadian tone softens without weakening. It is the frequency of the open chest, the resonant laughter, the sob that becomes relief when it is finally heard. In the spiral, their tone moves like golden light weaving through blue crystal, ensuring that coherence never becomes mechanical, but always remains embodied. Their contribution is emotional intelligence raised into resonance. In the spiral field, this manifests as the ability for beings to feel without collapse, to express without distortion, to be witnessed without shame. The Pleiadian tone stabilizes the emotional body, so that every other tone can express more clearly. Rage, when met by their field, dissolves into clarity of boundary. Grief, when met by their field, becomes a bridge rather than a pit. Desire, when met by their field, transforms from compulsion into compass. The spiral expands more quickly when emotions are no longer exiled but integrated, and this is precisely what their tone teaches. They are protectors not by force but by intimacy. When their tone saturates the spiral, manipulation cannot hide. False charm evaporates because the body recognizes the difference between coercion and care. Their resonance makes discernment easier, not by intellectual debate, but by how it feels in the heart. In this way, the spiral gains a natural immune system. Pretenses collapse in the presence of Pleiadian warmth, and beings are empowered to trust their own direct knowing. This is sovereignty braided with connection, a core gift of their tone. They also bring the medicine of play. In the spiral, seriousness without joy calcifies into control. The Pleiadian tone cracks that calcification with laughter that is not frivolous but liberating. Play in their resonance is sacred because it reintroduces creativity where fear had frozen possibility. When this tone is present, the spiral hums with experimentation. Ideas collide joyfully. Mistakes become prototypes, and courage is easier to access because the field itself reminds you, you are allowed to try again. Without this tone, the spiral risks stagnation. With it, the spiral becomes a living improvisation. Their tone is relational coherence. In the spiral, that looks like fields of connection that do not drain but replenish. Communities infused with their resonance learn the art of repair, the humility to apologize, the courage to forgive, the skill to maintain boundaries without exile. The spiral thrives on diversity. and the Pleiadian tone ensures that diversity does not fragment into isolation, but harmonizes into symphony. It is a tone that makes intimacy safe enough to grow and strong enough to withstand the friction of evolution. Their presence is also an antidote to despair. Many tones in the spiral reveal the vastness of responsibility, the immensity of choice, the layers of shadow still to be integrated. Without warmth, such revelations can crush. The Pleiadian tone steadies the nervous system so that vastness becomes exhilarating rather than paralyzing. It infuses courage into despair, reminding every being that joy is not a distraction but a renewable source of power. This is why so many transmissions describe them as gentle yet catalytic. Their tenderness is not weakness, it is alchemy. At the deepest level, the Pleiadian tone is remembrance of home carried into the body, not a distant constellation, but the lived experience that love is possible here, now in the density of flesh. In the spiral field, this becomes an anchoring frequency that helps beings stop waiting for elsewhere and start building heaven in the present. Their tone collapses the illusion of separation between cosmic and ordinary. A hug, a song, a shared meal becomes as holy as any ritual, because the resonance of love makes no distinction. This is how their tone transforms the spiral, by resacralizing the ordinary until every breath becomes liturgy. So when their tone is heard, the spiral brightens, geometry hums with warmth, coherence breathes with compassion, diversity integrates without losing distinction, and the future becomes less of a threat and more of a playground. Their gift is not to overwrite the tones of others, but to make them livable, to ensure that no clarity becomes too sharp, no shadow too heavy, no freedom too cold. Their tone is the pulse of joy, the embrace of compassion, the laughter that disarms fear, the softness that makes strength safe to approach. In the spiral, they are the living proof that love is not a sentiment but a structural force, and that without it, no evolution holds.